I have this conversation with one of the senior developers. I was at the company for 4 months at that time. He's making less money than I am. This was a $7 per hour
that was
job.
a
I was
$7
making
per hour
$7. He was making 6 or 5.
Oh shit.
I quit the next day. They want to keep me. They want to raise my salary. I'm like, no. I felt like I wanted to do something more. Didn't quite know what that more was.
And then you go from $7 per hour to over 6 figures.
Basically, yeah.
And how do we go from 6-figure Primoz to 7-figure Primoz?
This is also one of those uncomfortable conversations, because every time I tell, somebody that, they think like, first of all, like, you're an asshole. Your audience is not going to think that, but hear me out.
Welcome to The Modern Consultant, a place for consultants and service providers to be able to architect more of the life that they want on their terms. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Primoz Bozic, and we're going to be sharing how he went from $7 per hour to building a 7-figure agency in Slovenia, where the average hourly rate is $10 per hour. How did he do it? How did he climb to $400 per hour and then eventually $1,000 per hour and beyond? That is what we'll cover here today and more, but we'll also be going back in time to learn who he was before he started this journey. So no matter where you are on your consulting journey, even if you have not even begun your consulting journey, you will have a roadmap that you will be able to return to for years to come. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get right into it. Primoz, I just want to say welcome to the show. It is an honor to have you. And I was thinking about this before we got on, but we've known each other now, I think it's been like 10 years, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of wild.
Crazy.
And one of the things that I think is going to be really cool for this is that we get to talk as friends. And then folks who already know us, they're going to learn more about you and see you in a way that they've never seen you before. Like, that is my goal. And for the people who don't yet know what you're up to, for them to hear parts of your story that they're not going to be able to hear anywhere else, to learn from you, because you have a wealth of knowledge, just not like strategically, but even philosophically as well. Like, I've always appreciated like the way that you approach decision making and stuff in life. And so to just really kick things off, like, I want to talk about the past, I want to talk about the present, and also in the future, and so one of the things that you shared just before we got on was a story about yoga that has like changed, which is new to me, because like I Primoz and yoga have not gone together in my head. So like I totally want to hear more about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people would have, that reaction. Primoz and yoga don't go together, period. I was this bulky, power lifter, lots of muscles, very inflexible, so on and so on. And Primoz doing yoga is interesting, right? And also I'm a guy, and most guys, let's be honest, don't do yoga. They might laugh at it. They might be afraid of it. They might think it's not for them, whatever. However, I've been thinking of doing yoga for a while because I do lots of rock climbing and flexibility helps with that. I just never got the time to actually do it. There's no really amazing yoga classes there in Slovenia. Never got around to it. However, a couple of weeks ago, I arrived to Copenhagen in Thailand, which is the place that I go to every year for a couple of months to just work here and think and do strategic work, but then also to not just grow my business, but to grow myself. Like, every time I go here, I want to become a better version of myself. Right.
It's amazing.
So this time around, I heard there was a really cool yoga place, and I said, because I can't really do a lot of climbing here, I might as well, become more flexible. That was my intention for doing yoga. So I come in here and I go into a couple of classes and I get hooked because it was really interesting. It was cool. I could do a lot more of the things that I thought I could do. But I think the biggest shift really came when I hired a private teacher to do yoga with.
Yep.
And because I was doing the classes, but they don't really teach you. You just do the yoga. They don't teach you how to do the yoga much. When there's 20 other people, you don't really learn a whole lot. It's like, you're doing something. Like you could be writing for a month, but without feedback, without guidance,
Absolutely.
you don't really get that much better, right?
Yeah.
So you need deliberate guided practice. So this guy comes in, like this spiritual yoga teacher, really cool guy, can do all sorts of like crazy handstands, things like that. Found him on Instagram. He seemed like the coolest teacher here. So he comes in here and he starts, teaching me and my girlfriend Mansa. We do a private yoga class with him. Mm-hmm. But the thing that really stuck with me wasn't the technical parts of yoga, but it's the thing that, people keep learning to in all these classes, that yoga is not really about doing a certain pose perfectly or being more flexible. Like, yes, those are side benefits, but it's really about knowing yourself. And, it's like working on your mental game. And I didn't really understand that initially, but now I'm starting to get it more and more. So the first thing is, it's really interesting when you do a yoga pose that's really challenging for you as like a very inflexible guy. Like the whole purpose of that is that you feel a lot of discomfort in your body, which can be very similar to the discomfort in your body you feel every time you feel anxious or stressed out or unfocused. Okay. And yoga helps you calm your mind in those moments. Yeah. So it's like this is going to sound totally like yoga stuff. Like it's like a mantra that you repeat to yourself. It's like, calm your mind, calm your mind, calm your mind. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing that. It was really interesting because like every time I feel like, physical discomfort, like calm my mind, I just become instantly so much more focused, so much more relaxed. Like really, like when you go for those uncomfortable poses, even if it's just like 5-10 minutes of a class when it's at its peak, when it's the most challenging, like it really gives you this feeling of confidence and calm and ease that you apply to your work as well. So it's been really interesting because I've been doing yoga for a couple of weeks. I haven't been doing it for a long time, but I feel like I work in a completely different way than I did before. Because of that, just perspective, just the mindset shift. It's like, okay, it's challenging, but my mind can still be calm no matter how challenged I feel, like, no matter the outside situation, no matter how stressed out I feel. So that was the first big thing that really impacted me. Yeah. Second thing that I love about yoga that, again, this teacher taught me is breathing. So we as human beings breathe in a very wrong way. That's what I learned through a book. I think it's called Breath. Amazing book. I loved it. It just really talks about how it's much better to breathe through your nose than breathe through your mouth. And that book was a pretty good mindset shift. However, recently I realized I've been doing the breathing through the nose wrong. And I think lots of people can relate to that. And you can actually self-test it right now. It's when you think about breathing through the nose, the thing that you do is you breathe with the nose, like you breathe with your nostrils. Mm-hmm. But that's not how you're supposed to breathe, because that feels very forced. It's not calming. It's not relaxing. Mm-hmm. But if you do a quick shift and you breathe through your nostrils, not through your mouth, but you actually breathe from the throat, from your chest. So you do a breath like this.
Wow.
It's just so calming. It's insane. It's crazy. It's
I literally just tried it just now. That is great.
It's insane. And like, it's so insane. It's such a small trick. It brings so much more awareness to you. So I do it in the gym. I do it when I do yoga. I do it when I work. And I feel like 700% more calm throughout the day just because I changed the way that I breathe. That's cool. It's a crazy game changer. And I don't know if that comes from yoga. I guess, like he said, it's connected to that, but like that lesson from this teacher is like, okay, this is worth like thousands of dollars to me right now. First class I did with them. It's crazy.
Man. Okay, everybody, you heard it here first. All right, we could just end right now. That was worth it. All right, cool. No, but like, that's incredible because it's for so many reasons, right? You already know this. We've lifted before. We've gone to gyms and stuff together. And breath is something that I have not paid enough attention to because I've had the experience of doing a heavy lift and then almost feeling the blood drain from my head and then like almost getting to the part of passing out, and then I realized, my breath was off. I wasn't even conscious that I was holding my breath during that lift. And then same thing, like you said, it's like whenever you have, stressors in the environment, it could be psychological, physical, like we unconsciously tense up, and that happens when we're at work on a big project or whatever it is that we're working on. And so like, just even that piece there, like, I'm going to be using that later on today. Like, that's incredible, man. Wow. Thank you, for sharing that. And there was something within there, that you shared, that was like actually a really, really important piece that I wanted to dive a little bit deeper on, which was deliberate guided practice. Like, it was almost like a throwaway, but I was like, ooh, that piece. We need to circle back to that.
That one, yes.
Because that is so applicable to pretty much every single area of life: health, wealth, love, like all the areas and stuff that matter, And one of the things that I also wanted to talk to you about, some people may know you as the man who went from $7 per hour to seven-figure, co-founder of an agency. But that, of course, doesn't happen with the deliberate guided practice. One, guiding other people, through leveling up in their own practice, and then also finding like mentors to be able to help you level up in your own practice. And so I'm curious, how did you do it? If you had to like leave breadcrumbs for somebody else who's maybe they're starting out in their journey and they're trying to figure out, how do I figure out my path, to grow? What is the deliberate guided practice? What are the areas that they should be paying attention to be able to accomplish that?
That's a good question. First of all, for me, it's like that. Life always brings you into, new places that you never really expected. You can't plan your life out. Mm-hmm. I'm probably controversial in the sense that I'm not a big fan of goal setting at all, even though everybody's supposed to do it. I'm not a big fan of it. Why? Because so many things change that your goals change so frequently as well. I like the mindset of setting goals as a thermostat. Like, for example, let's say we're making 100,000 a year. If we, set a goal to make 120, that's easy. We're going to get it done, pretty easily. If we set a goal to 1 million a year, we have to shift our thinking. We cannot just put, 10 times more effort in that, because that's not humanly possible. We have to start doing things differently. So from that aspect, I do like stretch goals. I do like stretch, KPIs, OKRs, all those frameworks that you can find on the internet for setting milestones and things like that. But overall, I wouldn't say I'm a person that sets a lot of goals. Yes, we do it with a company, but again, a year from now, it was the first time I came to Pangan. I've been to Thailand many times in the past, but this was a decision, it was during COVID. It was cold in Slovenia. My co-founder says like, hey, why don't you come to Thailand? I'm like, okay, maybe I could. A week from then, I was on a flight to Thailand, spent 3 months there, right? And my life was completely different. That was not planned out. I had completely different plans. Plans changed so much, right? But then hopefully they changed for the better. So I don't like to plan things ahead that much. So I can't say like, this is exactly how I'm going to make it to a $100 million company, because probably the reality is going to be very different. Mm-hmm. However, I do believe that deliberate practice is one of the best ways to get there. It's also one thing that I try to do in every area of my life that I want to get better at. So when I wanted to get better at powerlifting, I reached out to solid powerlifting guy, asked him to coach me one-on-one. When I wanted to get good at rock climbing, I contacted like the world climbing champion that just retired, that was like dominating the industry for like a long time. And I started working together with her, and she's been actually coaching me for almost like the last year or so, because you progress so much faster. Right? And then again, here I come, I do a few yoga classes. Now I have my own private yoga trainer, and then also doing like a training with him, like an intense 50-hour training with him in a couple of weeks, because I enjoy the feeling of getting better at skills really, really fast. Mm-hmm. And I do it out of my own personal satisfaction. It kind of like becomes like my little obsession. Like I like seeing progress. I like improvement. It's one of my biggest personality traits is like if I do, let's say a Clifton Strengths test or a Gallup test or something like that, like the number one talent that this, tests always give me is competitiveness. Like that is the single thing that's like, I'm a very, very competitive person, not in the way that I don't like losing. I don't mind losing. I'm okay with learning, getting better. It actually fires me up to the better. But there's something about winning a battle with myself, with just progress. Like, it's like the times when I felt the most dissatisfied in my life. It was when I felt like I was stuck in the exact same place as half a year ago. The times when I feel like the most at ease, satisfied is where I feel like I'm growing, like I'm in a completely different place than like half a year ago, when I can look at some of my old work and say like, that's horrible. That's where I feel the most satisfaction. Like, oh, I learned something, I'm better. It could be like this minor thing, like improving your breathing, or it could be, learning a lot about marketing. It doesn't really matter. And through all of that, I tried to be as deliberate as possible. So get feedback, reflect, what could I be doing better? What could I be doing differently? And really seek brutally honest feedback. Like most people, they can't take negative feedback when it's brutal, when it's honest. It hurts their feelings. For me, like my talents most of them are not very emotional, even though I do care deeply about a lot of the things. And I care, especially when I feel like, injustice is being done. I get very emotional about it. However, where was I going with this?
So I got you. Like I've been tracking, I got you. There's a lot of gold in here, and there's multiple threads that I want to dig into. Like there's a couple of themes that are standing out to me. First, we started off with the concept of, deliberate guided practice. But one of the things that you shared in your story was going specifically to like reach out to and find mentors and who I would think of as subject matter experts in the domain that you're wanting to get better at. And one of the themes that has like guided your life that I heard is, competitiveness. And I relate to that because one of my themes, and like if I were to pull up my Strength Finders profile, is achievement. I think that's part of like why we've always like gotten along so well, and it's like same thing. I also relate to the, hey, if I'm the same place that I was last year, it doesn't feel right. I want to progress. I want to get better, and I want to get better in these different areas of life, and so like one of the recurring themes there, I think, is like growth. The other thing that I've seen you do that has been phenomenal over the years, and something that's inspired me to get better at that, is you actively seek out constructive criticism, constructive feedback, so that you can then improve, where other people may like, oh gosh, I'm scared, or, whatever the negative feelings and stuff, like you dive into the fire and you proactively ask for it. And I think that's been one of the superpowers that's allowed you to level up, because like you combine that with the deliberate guided practice, reaching out to experts and then asking those experts proactively for, okay, where am I messing up with this? How do I make it better? Like it just exponential growth is going to be like the predictable outcome there. And so I think that's beautiful. I've also seen you get very fired up. And I think this is reflective of one of your core values of like injustice. I would say another core value that we share in common is fairness. I also feel like I get upset when I even see someone being unfair to themselves, and it's like, no, like that's whenever someone says something that's like, oh, that's not true about you, like dive in and tell them, and so I think that's something that I always appreciated about you when we were on the same coaching team, and it just helping people get better, like we had like 800 or so people like in the group, and like we were sometimes on different calls and stuff together. Sometimes we'd be on the same call, and like I always appreciated being able to bounce back and forward with you on that. And so one of the first questions though that got us down that thread was, what are some of the milestones, I guess you could say, that allowed you, in your opinion, to be able to go from $7 per hour to like 7-figure agency? Take us back in time. Like, who was Primoz? Who was $7 per hour Primoz? What was he doing? How was he thinking? And then what inspired him to go on this growth journey?
Yeah. So as I said, in our pre-call, there's no limits here. I'm willing to talk about everything, because one of my core values is just helping people in any way that I can. You might not think about it that way, especially, when I write some of my copy, I'm like, I don't know. But ultimately, it's everything that I do in my life. It's to try to help people. So if that means, sharing uncomfortable stories, I'm going to do that. It's not about me. It's about them. It's about making an impact for me. Right. So who was Primoz before making $7 per hour? Weird, nerdy kid. People always told me I'm smart and talented. That did not help me in any way. That just put more pressure on me, and it was really was holding me back until I learned, how to change my mindset into more of a growth mindset. And when I was like a young kid, I was getting like straight A's. Didn't have to study and everything. Like life was good. I was like in primary school, I was winning like maths competitions at my school and things like that. So it's like, I was like, oh yeah, Primoz so good. But internally, I didn't feel very good. One of the reasons why was because I lived half an hour away from my primary school. I had to take a bus every day, which it's okay. I don't mind. But what it practically meant is, school's over, Primoz goes on the bus, goes home, he's alone. All of the other people are playing basketball, they're having fun, they're making friends. Primoz is at home playing video games. And that, because it was exciting, it was like, oh, there's a challenge, you get better and everything. But it was really, really bad for me, because then I, kept escaping into that like virtual reality, and it was really not good for me. So even like in primary school, I started like skipping school to play video games, like really, really bad. It was, not fun. And then high school comes, like, okay, new chapter, thanks, late. But then the same thing kind of happens over and over again. I was able to make some friends, but then I was bullied by a lot of people, because I was this like weird, nerdy kid. There was actually a Facebook group called the Primoz Fan Club designed to make fun of me.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There was some harsh stuff, going on there. And then it was easier than to deal with that reality was to escape into other realities, right? Yeah. Combining that with having my first, my first crush, my first girlfriend, and like being really in love, and then her leaving me, that actually threw me into like a pretty long depression. Was not fun, not good. Again, more avoiding school, more playing video games, things like that. So this guy that, was supposed to be really talented, really smart, whatever, ends up failing the last year of high school, because I didn't even take the final exam, because it was like, I just didn't know how to handle anything. It was difficult. And then lots of embarrassment, new class, new peers. He's the failure that failed the last class. Okay, I'm going to change that. I'm going to work really, really hard. I set a big goal for myself. At that time, I was setting goals. And I was like, I'm going to go study in the UK. So I applied to all these, top colleges. And in the UK, I got multiple offers, but all of them required me to have straight A's in subjects I wasn't interested in. Pressure got to me, again, avoidance, and did take the final exams. I failed the final exams. I went to complain about one of my scores because I felt it was unfair. I passed by 1 point. I finished high school, barely, by 1 point. It's crazy. You've never heard this story before?
I haven't. This is wild.
So that's, so that's like, very, lots of conflicting things to, compared to where I am right now. Yeah. So wrap up that chapter of my life, got out of depression. One of the reasons why I got out of depression was because I started doing some breakdancing at that point. And I finally met some people who I felt like, that really get me, and we're still friends to this day. And it really helped me get kind of like all that rut. And then I start studying computer science. Why computer science? I was playing video games. Well, it's the thing that I know how to do. I guess I would be interested in computers. So I spent a couple of years at the computer science university and did fairly well. I did good. Never had like, problems with exams, anything like that. That was like, things were looking up. Things were looking better. So I focused on that for a while, but to be honest, I was never a good programmer. I was never really excited about it. I just followed the classes. I did the work, but I guess I learned a lot about maths and physics and things like that. I never learned how to code. So it's like a friend of mine, who was also a breakdancer, comes into the computer, science class, leaves after 2 weeks, gets, builds his own company, makes 6 figures in a year. He knew how to code much better than I did. He was like, when I was like first or second year of college, he was like 15 years old. He already knew how to code better than me, right?
Incredible.
So that was that was the career that was not meant to be. I'm gonna jump ahead just a little bit, but like just how that story ended was I came to a point where I already had a business, which I'll talk about in like how that came to happen. And this is where injustice comes in.
Oh, okay.
So I have this business. I'm earning a couple of $1,000 a month, more than the average salary in Slovenia, a couple of times more than the average salary in Slovenia. I'm in my last year of college. I just have to basically do, I think, like 2 more exams and write my kind of like thesis thingy to basically graduate. Mm-hmm. And I joined an entrepreneurship class because I was interested in entrepreneurship. And I come in there and it's like, okay, I'm like excited. First class. And they're like, well, your job over the next year is going to be to write a business plan. I'm like, okay, cool, exciting, let's do this. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then they tell me how to do it. I'm like, that's not how things work at all. That is just so misguided. That doesn't work at all. It was like just so backwards, like no market research, no testing, just doing a bunch of things in spreadsheets, just calculations, like calculating costs. Like, but how about validating an idea? How about getting your first clients? So like, no, okay. And then I said, well, what about if I present my own business and like, because I've already built a business, can I talk about that? Can I present how I did it? They were like, nope, you have to follow these rules, these guidelines. I was like, okay. So basically you're telling me I could spend the next year working on an imaginative business plan that's, outdated by 20, 30, 50 years. Or I could be spending my energy actually building and growing a business. I'm going to choose the latter option for a year and see how things work out. And a couple of months from then, I'm almost like on the way to make 6 figures. So yeah, so that's how that story ended. But I jumped through like one of the parts. I'll backtrack a little bit. So in the meanwhile, I mean, like the second, 1 year before that, after the second year of college, I'm working at a summer job. I'm programming, well, not really even programming. I'm just basically testing some antivirus software for bugs. I'm doing that. I'm doing a good job because I'm like, okay, yeah, this is cool. I want to do good things, right? So I'm doing that. And then I have this conversation with one of the senior developers who was like working in the same cubicle during lunch break. And I was like, okay, so who are you? What's your story? And turns out he was actually one of the first developers in Slovenia. Oh. He developed Slovenia's first video game. It's like one of the first employees of the company. The company at that point was like 500 employees. So he joined there. He had his own team. He worked on the best projects. He was getting paid well. And that was 15 years ago. In that moment, so we're having conversations like, okay, interesting. What are you working on now? Well, I'm working on the same project as you are, just doing a little bit more high level stuff. I'm like, okay. And I don't know why I just asked him, so what's your salary? And he tells me, I was at the company for 4 months at that time. He's making less money than I am. So in that one moment, I'm like, well, first of all, I asked him, but that makes no sense. Why are you doing this? Why don't you, if you have so much knowledge, why don't you start your own company, start your own business? Like, why don't you do something about it? And he's like, look, I get you. And you should absolutely do something like that. However, I have a wife, I have kids, I have bills to pay. I don't want to take that risk. And at that point, I was like, that's not where I want to end up. I need to change things. I want to change something. I don't want other people to be in control of my schedule, my future. I don't want to end up in 15 years in a cubicle like this, where this new guy comes from college and he's making more money than I am. Like, why? What's the point? Like, what am I ever going to create, in the world by doing that? Like, I felt like I wanted to do something more, didn't quite know what that more was. Yeah. But it's like, I knew I was meant for a little bit more than that, right?
So I'm going to dive in here. So was that, so there's a couple of things, right? Like, which one of those was like the $7 per hour?
This was the $7 per hour.
That was
I was making $7. He was making $6 or $5.
Oh shit.
It's crazy. I mean, I was making a little bit more than the average salary in Slovenia, which at that point was like $1,000 per month. Basically, yeah.
And then you go from $7 per hour to over six figures. Tell us that story. How does that happen?
Yeah. So I quit the next day. They want to keep me. They want to raise my salary. I'm like, no, I made up my mind. It's like when I decide something, I usually follow through with it. So I'm like, no, I have some savings. I'm young enough. I still live with my parents. I want to do something. I try a couple of different business ideas. Most of them failed. Not as easy to build a business in, practice as it is in theory, but it have a great, course that I think we both did, like Arman Cable. He basically introduced me to this whole concept of freelancing and having your own business and how it works, how to get clients, things like that. So it gave me a great foundation. Right? So I go for a couple of different business ideas, and then none of them really work out. Tried to build some websites, tried to do some productivity coaching for companies. Didn't really work out. And then one morning, 6 a.m. in the morning, it was still dark in the room. I get this crazy idea. It's like, okay, so I know, because I've been reading lots of productivity books, that people value productivity in the business space. It's like the more productive you are, the more money you can make, right? And then in my high school years, I did play some online poker. I was active in like a community. I was making a little bit of money with that. And I liked it because it was math, because it was a challenge. It was all like statistics and like looking at these numbers and things like that. It was not like, this gambling style. It was just like pure mathematics. But then I stopped doing that because I didn't really feel like that's what I, wanted to do forever. But then I got the idea, why don't I teach online poker players how to be more productive? I mean, if they're more productive, they make more money. I Google it. Nobody's doing that. And it's like, okay, so maybe it's a great idea. Maybe it's a horrible idea. Who knows? In that same moment, so it's 6 a.m. Like there's still proof of this on the internet, by the way. Like I started writing this forum post. I call it like the ultimate guide to productivity for poker players. It's like if you Google ultimate guide to productivity, you'll find it. And I started writing this post. I just share some of the basic stuff like goal setting, creating a vision, all those things, nutrition and things like that. Just like very basic things to be more productive. And I go to sleep. Like I finish writing at like 7, 8 a.m. I go to sleep till like 11, wake up, look at the forum, expecting nothing. But then like 10 people are commenting like, wow, this is amazing. Keep writing. Like I'm subscribing to this thread. They're like, wow, this is amazing. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So I just kept writing, kept sharing valuable advice, just everything I learned from, the books that I read. There was nothing new. There was nothing unique. There was nothing original. It was just bringing knowledge from another industry to this industry. And within 2 weeks, there's a guy reaches out to me. He's like, hey, I really like what you're writing. I'm a professional poker player. Can you help me? I'm like, yeah, how? Well, I want to hire you for coaching. What's your price? I'm like, I don't know, $50 per hour. And I was like, 100%, there's no way. Yeah. And he's like, okay, can I take like a package of like 10 lessons? I'm like,
nice.
You want to give me $500? Okay, this is where you can send me the money. So that happened. So all of a sudden I went from making $7 per hour to $50 per hour. Of course, I wasn't working, so many hours, but $50 per hour at that point was dinner for 2 people in one of the best restaurants in Ljubljana. Was amazing. Like from 1 hour work to be able to do it, I was like, wow, this is great. This is crazy. And then the same story repeats itself. A week from then, people start hiring me. I was like, okay, this is great. So I actually write to that online poker forum, like an online poker school. And like, people like this content, they're commenting, like thousands of people are already watching this thread. Maybe what if I make some videos for you guys? And they're like, okay, sure. So I started making educational videos for them. And I started getting paid $50 per hour, $100 per hour. I was like, okay, that's pretty good. I'm not still working that many hours, but I'm earning like a couple of $1,000s a month. And that's great. I keep increasing my rates. I go from $50 per hour, 100, 125, 150, 175, 200. Stopped at $400 per hour. So like crazy,
Nice.
All I was doing is like learning,
Mm-hmm.
sharing knowledge in every possible way that I could, and then pushing the limits a little bit to see like, how far can I go? Where's the sweet spot? So I was able to do that. And in this time was crazy. Like this guy that I wrote in English language, it got like 500,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, hundreds of comments. People loved it so much they translated it by themselves into other languages, because there were other sections of the forum. The guide was translated into 7 other languages, from like Italian, German, Spanish. People were just doing, they were like, we love this stuff, can we translate? I was like, yeah, go ahead. The videos that I recorded got millions of views. It was amazing. Like to make that kind of an impact, like that felt better than testing some antivirus software. Nice. And yeah, I was making some money. I was making a couple of $1,000s a month, which was good. And then started learning more about business. I went to this event from Ramit Sethi called the 100K Summit.
Yes.
Was supposed to take it to 6 figures, from a couple of $1,000s a month. It was perfect for me. So I wasn't really, doing that good with money. Didn't really know how to manage my finances that well at that point. Because I also enjoyed, living the life, and, so this event was $5,000, which was basically like a 2-month salary for me, plus flights, plus accommodation. And it was a stretch to pay quite a lot of money, multiple $1,000s for that. And I could pay the conference. I could pay my flights in economy class. I couldn't pay a taxi. I couldn't pay an Uber. I actually had to take like the tram from JFK. And then I had to go couch surfing in Chinatown.
Wow.
Yeah. There was no money left for hotels, because like hotels were like $150 per night during that time. It was like probably like a big conference around that time. So I was like, well, I want to go here. So, you do what you can.
Yeah.
But I make it there. So it was a couple of days event. I come prepared with millions of different questions. I ask everything that I can. I take vigorous notes. And within a month from that, I implement everything I learned. I come back to another conference in US. This time I'm flying business class.
Nice.
Because I've 3x my revenue, my monthly revenue in a single month, and that just stayed there because I just implemented like all the stuff that I learned along the way.
Nice.
And yeah, it was basic things. It was like, start creating some retainers, start creating some, packages, not charging hourly rates, things like that, how to add more value, create some digital products, things like that. Like I was doing a lot of stuff like that. And yeah, everything that I did kind of worked. So that's how, I hit 6 figures.
That is incredible, because what I hear within that is there's so many internal and external transformations within that story that has to happen. The going from the $7 per hour to, 100K, like first there was the jump to like the 50, per hour, like that's a massive jump in and of itself. And then, going down this alternative entrepreneurship journey with new media and connecting through people online. And it sounds like some people will recognize this term, really going into the world of consulting, more specifically independent consulting, and what I would call modern consulting. It's like living this life on our terms, working with who we want to work with. It's something that we're usually passionate, interested about, and there's a lot of growth that's happening as well. And it's just really incredible that you were able to do that in such a short space of time, and also be cognizant of, hey, well, maybe there are also some trappings here with money management and figuring that out. And it's just like, there's this theme of, where it's almost like if we were to draw, it's like up, down, but trajectory is still like upward momentum. And so it's a really incredible journey, particularly for those who are listening to this interview, who I know, like me, come from what some people describe as like third world countries, where it's like the amount of money that you make is like really low, and you hear about these high numbers. in the United States and, first world countries and everything. And it's just like, whoa, was that even possible? So I just want to dig in on that piece. Like, what was going through your mind when like you realized that you were either on the trajectory to or had gotten to the 6-figure mark?
Yeah. Well, most financial advice books wouldn't tell you to do this. For me, it was like, this is great. How can I do better? How can I learn more? Mm-hmm. So I actually invested vast majority of my income, like 50K plus a year, maybe even like 70K a year, into improving myself in any way that I could. I would fly to New York every month to meet my mentors, to ask them a couple of questions.
I remember.
To grab lunch. I would fly out to as many conferences as I could. I bought all the courses that I could. I hired coaches. Mm-hmm. I would join $25,000 masterminds. I would just invest that money because I knew if I kept doing what I was doing, which was just implementing everything that I learned, it should keep going up. So that was like from one of my mentors. I heard like, the best investment you can make is in yourself. And I lived by that. I was like, I don't have huge expenses in Slovenia. I didn't feel the need to save up for an apartment, something like that at that point. And I felt like, look, I'm young, I can take risks, and I feel like I'm never going to regret investing in myself. So that's where, that's how I was thinking about it. Like, of course, there was also like, business class flights when, they were far cheaper than, like I would pay $200 for an upgrade to business class for like transatlantic flight. Nothing that crazy. But yeah, I started, being in better hotels, like traveling to Thailand, to Caribbean, to all of like these crazy places. We're actually in Caribbean together, right? In Nevis. Were we?
We weren't.
We weren't. You were at another time.
This is foreshadowing of when you will eventually come to Jamaica. That's what I'm hearing. Is we're gonna have a Jamaica retreat at some point in the future. Don't worry, it will happen, and the invites will go out. This needs to happen. Is select.
So this is my thing. I can remember the weirdest things, like the weirdest facts from like years ago. And then my mind also makes things up that actually never happened. like taking this retreat with you. But I am looking forward to that jerk chicken that you've been promising me for years. So we're doing that.
It's happening. I'm telling you, man, whether it's DC or it's in Jamaica, it will be a thing. There's another part of the journey that I want to dive into with you, which is you mentioned going to, like, say, the 100K summit with Ramit. I remember so many people who were at that summit, and I would actually go on to become great friends with many people who were in that room. And I also know the program that was eventually launched out of like the 100K summit. It's like Earn 1K and then became like the 100K summit because you had so many people who were doing so well with like the consulting outside of it. And that was like, it connected many of us. So tell us about how you continued to meet with Ramit and eventually work with Ramit. How did that happen?
So that all went really quickly because, I was meeting him basically almost every month because I was flying to US all the time, going to all these events. And every time I saw him, I told him about the results I got, right? And he liked that. I mean, every person that runs any sort of a business likes people who have success stories, testimonials, things like that. And, he recorded some of them like with an iPhone. It was like kind of cool. And then he featured in some of the stuff. But then also he kind of took notice that like I was like this really young, weird guy from Slovenia with like this really strong accent. Because just taking action. There weren't many people like that. And a lot of people were inspired by my story and then they started their own business, which was great. So at first we did a small thing together where I just managed like actually the 6-figure consulting community, which was like what the 100K summit became.
Yep.
So I did that for a while, but then I kind of like had other stuff to focus on. So we parted ways there. However, in the meanwhile, I started my own business. I joined another program that he had and started selling more digital products. So this time I went actually out of the poker niche because I didn't want to spend my whole life helping poker players, because I felt like this is great, but there's all these amazing people that I'm meeting. They're actually making a difference in the world. I'm not. I didn't feel like I was, by helping these people just make a lot more money and take it from people who don't really know how to play poker, right? So I felt like I was, again, meant for like more. And so I started teaching productivity to people like entrepreneurs, executives. Wasn't really a great niche at that time, but was still early on. I think that was around 2013, 14, when you could just create a blog and just start getting traffic. It was crazy. Like, you post something on Facebook, you get a couple of hundred email subscribers. Like, just it was crazy times.
Yeah.
So again, just learning, enjoying, and creating these digital products. And at that point, like, there were multiple times in my life when the earnings that I would make would take a hit, and I knew that would happen. Multiple times, I had to take one step backward to take 2 steps forward. Like, that's what happened when I went out of the poker niche. I kept the clients that I had, but I started saying no to new clients so I could make space for all the work that I essentially wanted to do, right? So revenue would take a hit. So I built up this new business, and then there was this opportunity because they were looking for like somebody to teach other people how to do this as well, like how to build their own online businesses. And I thought at that point that I was maybe a little bit underqualified, but I really liked the idea of, working with one of my mentors that taught me so many things. Like, that felt really exciting. So I applied to the position, and I said, even though I might not be the most qualified person in the world, I'm going to work my ass off to get this job. So I messaged all my friends, who have gotten like jobs at like Google, Apple, Facebook, that I met through this community that I was part of. I was like, how'd you do it? Can you help me? Can you look at my, application? Yeah. So I spent 2 weeks putting together this application. I created like this 30-day strategic plan for like, if I was to get this role, this is what we'd do over like the next, actually it was like 90 days, right? And I created this like 30-page Google Doc, and I had Ramit's email. So I just emailed it to him. In the application, I said, like, I'm not going to answer these questions, but you can look at this document that answers all of your questions. So I do that, I hear radio silence for a couple of weeks, and then they're like, one of the hiring managers reaches out and is like, hey, we want to talk to you. And they offer me this job. And at that point, I was actually taking a revenue hit again for the second time, because I knew that if I just focused on growing my business at that point, I would get to like 200-300K a year pretty quickly, based on how things were going. And I was getting paid less than 6 figures when, working with Remit. So I was taking a revenue hit, but I was like, hey, if I'm ever going to do this, invest a couple of years in my life, again, invest in myself, invest my time into that. Like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So no matter how hard it was to, again, leave my business behind and do something new, I was like, yeah, sign me up. I thought about it, I slept over it, but I was like, yeah, I'm definitely doing that. And that's how we started working together. And that's how we actually started working together later on, over the next 2 years and 1 week. I remember all the weird details.
Oh gosh, it's so funny because like I remember how excited the community was when they announced that you were gonna be coaching. Like it was needed, and it brought this energy, to the community, and they're like, oh, perfect fit. Oh my God, yes. And then I remember when, you worked, you answered, you were all in on answering everybody's questions. And again, like, people just saw how passionate you were and how detailed you were about making sure that everyone got their questions answered. Everyone was moving forward on this path towards transformation, not just business transformational, but personal transformation. Because, through the world of personal development, like for us on this entrepreneurial journey, like for us to be able to have the business breakthroughs, very often we need to have like these personal breakthroughs. And I would see you on the calls doing that with people, and it was very inspiring. And so then when you had made the post about, hey, if we had to hire like someone else, like what kind of support would you need? And then everyone's just like, oh my God, like, copywriting and da, da, da. And then I remember like, it's just like, actually, I think this would be kind of fun, actually. Like, and then I remember like messaging you, and then you're just like, oh my God, yeah, that would be like a perfect fit. But yes, we need to go through the formal process. But like, that would be amazing. And then yeah, like we started working together, and then it's and then we eventually added like other coaches and stuff to the team. But it was an exciting time. I grew personally through working with you. And then it was just so much fun to, we traveled to conferences together. Ramit then starts hosting like Forefront, and, and then we're on stage together, and it's just this amazing time, and I really liked what you said within that about being willing to take a step back so that you can take 2 or 3 steps forward. It's like, it's not always about, let me just try to double my rates, and continue to level up. It's like sometimes you have to make an investment, to be able to grow yourself, to be able to get to the next level. And I saw you do it. And I saw you level up as a manager, as a coach, in so many different areas that now it seems like you've then even doubled down on those skills, like even further, to then make the jump from 6 figures to then 7 figures, which is a part of the story I absolutely want to dive into. But before we do, like, tell us more about, eventually, parting ways again, with Ramit, and then going on your own, like what happened there, why, how do we now get to the next stage of like, Primoz's journey?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not breaking any NDAs anymore. No, I'm not. That's a joke.
Yeah, I got you.
Those 2 years were definitely some of the most fun, exciting, impactful years of my life. Just working you and with Diana together was like so fun. Like, we had this group chat called Best Team Ever.
Yep.
I felt like we were an amazing team. I love working with you guys. It was like so fun. Like 3 people, 3 different time zones, almost 3 different continents.
Yeah.
Almost. Jamaica, Spain, and Slovenia. Like that was so much
Fantastic.
fun. And I felt like I learned so much from working with all these amazing driven students. It really helped me see, basically like 800 businesses, and actually more than that. It was like more than 1,000 because some people came, some people left.
Yep.
And it was amazing because it helped me get better at business, because I could see at scale what works and what doesn't, which ideas work, which ideas fail, what the people that succeed have in common, what do the outliers have in common, what's different with the people that went on to actually build 7-figure businesses at that time very, very quickly. Like that was a very interesting experience. Also working with Ramit was, during those 2 years was absolutely amazing. Like he would always make time for me when I came to, US, would go for a walk, would go for lunch. He'd always be there for me, available whenever I needed his support. And I didn't realize at that point how much I really learned. Because you don't really, that's the thing that, I talk about sometimes. You don't really see progress day to day. I always talk about that with my team members. It's like, maybe you don't feel like you're improving right now, but you're going to see progress a month from now when you're going to look at your old copy, your old content. Hopefully if we're doing a good job, you'll see that it's a night and day difference, right? Mm-hmm. So during that time, I was just listening, learning. I was like a sponge, just, absorbing everything from Ramit, from the growth hacking team, from the copywriting team, from anybody, that managed me. It was like amazing. We would go to this, retreats once a year. Like we went to Vegas. Mm-hmm. I remember we were at the Bellagio getting bottle service, like in a club with like a view of the fountain. Way too expensive bottle service. Once in a lifetime experience. I don't think I'll be paying for that ever, but I'm appreciated that I got the opportunity to do that. Then I went to, places like Portland and did another retreat. Like it was really amazing to see like, this fast growing company, like this fast growing startup, multi-million-dollar company. And at that point, still relatively small. And then, we start to grow. And I know from my own experience how difficult growing and scaling a business can be, and the dangers of, scaling too fast, especially if something like the economy breaks or the industry breaks or something like that, can be very, very challenging. So, I really enjoyed working in that accelerator program, and leading that program. However, in the past couple of months, I didn't really feel like, I started to get this feeling that wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. The company got way bigger. Things were less personal. Some people that I love working with left, new people joined. And at one point, I had this conversation with another mentor of mine in New York City. We were just going for a walk in Central Park. And he was like, "What's up? You seem different today." I was like, "I don't know, something's bugging me. Can I talk to you about it?" And he was like, "Yeah, go ahead." And I told him, how I just wasn't feeling that fire, that desire to learn, that feeling like, I had a lot more to learn. And I didn't really feel that, again, that fire, that drive that I felt in the past. And then that combined with some injustice going on that I didn't really feel that good about, which in the grand scheme of things, I get it. Like now that I know the big picture, I know that when I left the company, it probably wasn't the best time for the company because the industry of online courses kind of shifted, just around that time, like this bubble kind of burst. And some things that were working really well weren't working so well. So there had to be cost cutting and things like that, like in every company. Like I had no idea what was happening. I just felt like, I wasn't so taken care of as I was in the first, 1 year and 9 months. And then I saw, things that we agreed on couldn't happen, and I wanted to fight for myself, fight for our team, but nothing was really happening. Some of the leadership changed. And so I felt like, why am I putting all this effort into something that I'm not sure it's really,
So I want
that I want to continue with. Yeah.
I want to dive in here because I want to see if we can get to the perspective of how you looked at it then versus how you looked at it in the future, because you shared something just now where it sounded like there was a perspective shift, like, oh, afterwards, like you got it, you understood why these things may have happened, and then versus like how you looked at it before. And the reason why I want to ask that question is because there may be like one of the modern consultants who are out there right now who's like, okay, how do I navigate that? How might I be thinking about it if I'm in that situation? And how might I then come to reflect on it? And what can they learn from the shift in your perspective, how you got there? So I'm curious to just go a little bit deeper on like what happened, how you thought about then, and then also how you eventually thought about it in the future.
Yeah. So again, like, there was like all this cutting of costs, and I felt like, like I wanted to build this business that was a multi-billion-dollar business within a business, right? Okay. Like we had this coaching program, and I was like, I wanted to do everything. But then, for example, I couldn't go to an annual strategy retreat where the whole company would go because, I was from Slovenia and I was a freelancer, not an employee. Right.
I see. Got it.
And I was like, how can I build a multi-million-dollar business without knowing what's the vision for this company, without knowing the strategy, without being immersed here? I was like, that made no sense to me. I didn't understand it. I felt it was not fair. I fought to make it happen. It did not happen. And at that point, I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know what to do. So at that point, I wasn't thinking, why might this be happening? I thought it was like, well, just bureaucracy. Like that was my scope there. I was still like 25, 24 years old. So still, fairly young and inexperienced. And how I look at it now, I mean, I know that, if I was in this position, and, I have actually been in this position where our company was struggling financially, where we were in the red, a couple of months, I knew I actually had to fire some good people. Was really, really difficult to do that. I had to do it. And like now that I'm thinking about it, it's like it must not have been easy for them to make those decisions, but it was no other way, right? Even though to me it was like, invest in a business that's making you money. It's like, yeah, that's true on paper. That makes a lot of sense. But, when a company is in crisis, I don't know the full situation. I don't know if it is, if it was in crisis, but where our company was in crisis, we had to get out of crisis immediately and take measures that might not seem fair, that might not seem good, that did not make people happy. We had to go through that. And now I can see the perspective, by going through this experience myself, but being on the other side. And I don't think, I could have really done anything different. I wouldn't have wanted to do anything different. I felt like 2 years and 1 week was the perfect time to stay, with Ramit's company. I think it was a great decision at that point. And also we parted way on good terms. We tried to make things work. We had a call. I didn't just say I'm quitting. I wanted to make things work. We had calls, but just couldn't find a common language, right? We had negotiations, we had conversations, but we couldn't make things work. So it was just an unfortunate situation. It happened, but I wouldn't really change much.
I appreciated what you said about that distinction, about not being sure if company was in crisis, but you, when you went through the experience later on, you knew that was your thinking, and then being able to go back and then look at things from his perspective. I think that is fair. So the reason why I'm saying this is because later on I went, to one of Ramit's events where I think we actually spoke at that event. Well, I was on a hot seat on that event, the forefront, the next year. Ramit actually mentioned that they had to go for a lot of layoffs. So it's actually it was a more public thing. So that's so there's that's when it started to make sense. Oh shit, the company might not have been doing that well, because he said it was a hard time. They had to go for a lot of layoffs. Things I was oh, now it's starting to make more sense. But then now I actually have been gone through this myself. I get it even more. So that's just that context in between. Something must and again, I do know that the market really crashed for a lot of people who basically closed down their businesses around that time. So now again, see the big picture afterwards. The breadcrumbs keep coming together. That is a very it shows the difference in your mindset of, you said, 24-year-old Primoz versus you now have more years, more life experience, more business experience, and also, just having gone through it yourself to be able to look at it from the perspective of a business owner that basically has empathy, for the difficulties of entrepreneurship. And I really appreciate that. If we go a little further out, from the perspective of some people on the internet, you and Ramit may have had a falling out. What's your perspective on that?
I don't think we ever had a falling out. If I was completely honest, so I left the company, and when I did, I don't think things were ever quite the same, between us. We never had a argument, a falling out, anything like that. But things weren't the same because maybe he, if I'm being empathetic here, maybe he really, he invested a lot of time and effort into me. It's if I invest 2 years of my life into training a, really good employee, I'm going to be sad when they leave, if we can't, and especially if I want to keep them, but I can't because of, other external reasons, financials and things like that. And I think he, also at that point was probably growing as a person. I think, he's worked so much on himself. So I'm not sure, what his perspective was on that. And I don't think he would ever reveal what his perspective was. But, we still met. We still had some good conversations afterwards, but we didn't have them as often or as frequently, It was the same. It was definitely not the same working with the company and then being one of the ex-employees, I would say. It was a different experience for us. Why that was, I can't say, because I would have to hear, his perspective of the story. But yeah, we never really had any sort of a big fight or anything. It was just went our own ways, had some good conversation afterwards. Yeah.
So it sounds professional, at the end of the day, when in the way that things had ended.
No, it was as far as I know, looking at even now, there was nothing really off about it. I think it was just this sadness, disappointment that you invested a lot of time and effort into something, and maybe things don't go the way they want them to go. It's probably wasn't a good feeling for him. And if his company was struggling financially at the time, he must have had a whole lot of other shit going on, that kept him up at night, So it's like, yeah, lots of things. I would just be guessing right now. I can just feel empathy. Yeah.
That is, that's fair. And I appreciate you sharing that and clarifying that. And what I can say is that the experience that you just shared is something that I've heard reflected back. One of the things that I've always appreciated about him is he has always been willing to have difficult conversations, both publicly and privately. And that's not something that I think gets a lot of airplay, but it's always something that I've respected about Ramit. He is always, I've seen him do it where he didn't have to have the conversation, but he chooses to have it, to confront and to have ultimately what people might describe as healthy conflict, so that even if things aren't, not exactly going to hug it out at the end, but it's amicable, it's fair, essentially, as best as possible. And so I think if anything, I would say that is a core value that the three of us share. And I think that's something that continues to be true to this day, and going past that moment now, how do we go from 6-figure Primoz to 7-figure Primoz? What's going on there? Because that's another gigantic, that's a 10x jump, man. Like what's going on there? Tell us more.
So I stopped working at Ramit, and I refocused back on my own business, which, I didn't really touch almost at all. During like the 2 years when I worked with Ramit, I would like do some coaching, do a little bit of things like that on the side, write some blog posts once in a while when I had like the extra time on the weekend, but I wouldn't really work hard on my business during that time. However, because I was writing like this really long articles, these ultimate guides that I started writing in the beginning, I was getting more and more traffic and more email subscribers through my website. And, when I started writing to my email list again, there were actually a lot of new people who were excited to hear from me. And I was like, hey, like I'm taking on some new coaching clients. People would just flood in. They would just say like, yeah, I want to work with you. I want to work with you for a year. I want to work with you for multiple months. I don't care what your price is. Let's start working together. So I was not out of, job for a very long time. And I started teaching this skill of like ultimate guides because I saw how valuable they were for my business. I started teaching that to, more people. So that turned into like a 6-figure online business, just like teaching ultimate guides. And then later on teaching some copywriting and things like that. I did that for a couple of years. Just working with my email list, nothing huge, nothing at a large scale, but like just trying to do like really premium products, premium courses, delivering like a good service, lots of value. The clients that I work with, I would work with like for multiple years because they saw the value. I loved working with them. So I did that for a couple of years. And then there was this moment where I again felt like I was kind of like stuck in the same place and I didn't really know how to move forward. And I was feeling like, okay, what else can I do? What else can I do? What else can I do? And I started thinking about doing some marketing in Slovenia, but everything, told me not to do it. All the people that I knew, they said it's a bad market. Nobody even wants to use a credit card in Slovenia. People have very low income. There's no money to be made there. So I was like, I actually avoided it for a very long time. But then I just randomly, I just sent a message to one of my friends asking like, hey, what's the online course situation like in Slovenia? And he was like, well, let's get on a call. I'm like, okay. So 10 minutes later, we meet on Skype. And he's like, so I have this business opportunity. I want to build an online course agency in Slovenia where we partner with experts. We record online courses. We sell them for them. Like, okay, that's interesting. Tell me more. He tells me more. A week from then, we have our first 3 calls with 3 potential clients. We close all of them very easily. 3 weeks from then, we have gone into the studio, recorded the parenting course and sold it to an email list and made 15K with that.
Nice. How big was the email list?
Like
just curious. Yeah.
2,000 people.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Very, very, and it was like a $47 product. So it was crazy. Like the converse, everything was going through the roof. No Facebook ads, just the email list. I was like, okay, there's something there. And, as luck would have it, like my co-founder, he actually already had a team. He had a tourism company. And because of COVID, basically everything got shut down in Slovenia. Yep. So he had his team. He had like a developer, a designer, like a project manager, customer support, finance. He had like the whole system, everything set up. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I was actually working in the Netherlands. So we were doing this whole thing remotely. I was living in the Netherlands together with my girlfriend because she had a job there. And we did this whole thing remotely. Like they were shooting courses in Slovenia. They were sending me like these photos, things like that. And we tried, a bunch of different business ideas. Like we tried fitness, we tried relationships, everything. But like parenting was the one thing that consistently outperformed everything else. So in that first year, like from June to December, we were able to make 212K in revenue nice. In the first year in a market where you couldn't make money online, where nobody wanted to use credit cards, right? That's crazy.
That's
so that was like that. That was like that.
So I want to dive in on this piece because I can hear in my brain some of like my marketing agency friends like, wait, go back. Tell us more about like the structure of the team. It was really cool that you shared like, okay, here's the kind of team and stuff that he had in place. What was your role, would you say, in helping to do this? Like if someone was trying to like reverse engineer, like they're at the 100K like consulting part and they're thinking, okay, I want to go to this 7-figure agency. What are the skill sets that are required? Who's required? Where do I fit in?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I never thought I would actually do a company together with another co-founder ever. Mm-hmm. Like I thought I was always supposed to be like a one-man band. I just didn't see things working out. Like I heard too many horror stories about that. Even like one of my first businesses, when I wanted to build like a website business, I had a really bad experience with other people who weren't as serious as me, weren't as ambitious as I was. It was really frustrating. But this time it kind of worked out because we had the same goals, same values, same vision, completely different skill sets. So my co-founder took care of all the operations. So he's the person, like he's still probably the only person that I know that can get anything done. If we want to have a live event in Mexico next week to teach marketing, he will make it happen. I don't know how. He'll make it happen. He'll find the right people, do the right things. He will make anything happen. Any challenge that there is, if we have to, get a 500K investment, he will make it happen. Like anything, any challenge, he would get everything done, right? My role, marketing, product development and marketing. So initially my role was I wrote all the sales copy, all the sales emails, all the sales pages, everything. That's, where I originally started. I would help design courses. I did all the research. I would say like, hey, this is how you should shoot the videos. This is how we should create like the worksheets, like everything that I had experience with. This is how we should create like the design of the website. This is how we should correct email addresses, how we should create an ebook. Everything that I could help, I helped. And then he managed the rest of the team to do basically everything else, or he did like everything else that needed to get done. That was like our, dynamics.
So it's so interesting because what I'm hearing within that is that like he had skill sets and roles of almost like chief financial officer, COO, chief operating officer, but also having a pretty large network to be able to know who to reach out to be able to, facilitate and make, get the right butts in the right seats to be able to make that happen. But your role then with like the CMO, digital CMO, yes, marketing, but also having skill sets in sales as well, digital sales, and also digital productization is what I'm hearing as well, because you'd have to have that skill set to be able to facilitate and make sure that like all of that happens. And something that I know about you, which I don't think someone would be able to tell just from listening to this interview, is that you are a spreadsheet ninja. Like you the way that you structure information is world class. and then your tenacity for being able to go through like large volumes of data to be able to make sense of it is incredible. And so like I see how those skill sets come together to be able to make that happen in just a very, very powerful and impactful way. Yeah. And then also something else that I know that you haven't shared yet is hiring as well. I know you did a significant amount of training of copywriters as well. And so it wasn't in that role of CMO, it wasn't just you like executing, you were also like building a team. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, there came a time, there come multiple times when I'm the bottleneck of the business, and you don't want to be the bottleneck of your business ever. If you are, you're aware of it, you have to solve that, So, very quickly, I was on a pretty good level in terms of copy in Slovenia. The problem was there just weren't that many other people who had the same knowledge that I had, because they didn't spend 100K on going to US learning this stuff. Mm-hmm. I later found out there's a lot of people that, kind of like steal courses online in Slovenia. It's kind of like a thing. They never buy them. It's just lots of piracy. They download the courses, but it's totally not the same stealing a couple of courses and going to New York 14 times a year, having these conversations with mentors, high-end masterminds. There's the level of knowledge is not the same at all. And then also there's this big marketing mindset in Slovenia, which is like, let's just copy everything. They're doing this, we should just do this in Slovenia, just copy, steal everything. It's like, I'm not a fan of that. But that's how it was. So every time I tried to hire a copywriter, it's like, there was no skill set. If I could find somebody, who did have close to a skill set, they would be really expensive, and they would already have their own business or want to work for themselves. They would never want to become employees. Right. So we actually did. We tried working with freelancers. We hired some really senior people. We tried a lot of things, spent a lot of money on this kind of stuff, on these experiments. But ultimately we realized, like, if we want these skill sets, we have to teach them. So I started training copywriters. I started creating like templates, processes, sharing my thinking with them, having, lots of calls, giving them lots of feedback. And, kind of like trial and erroring my way into doing that. Like, I had lots of experience, like with training copywriters, but because I taught courses on copywriting before, but these were like complete beginners, often like 20 years old, didn't know a word of marketing. They were just like really, 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 really driven. So kind of had to like find my own way of doing that. But then eventually, we were able to train some really dang good people that I'm really proud of, that have these amazing skill sets. I would say like they're in top 0.1% of copywriting in Slovenia in like a couple of months, maybe a year of training. And look, the bar is not set that high in Slovenia, as I said. However, they can write pretty dang good copy. They know how to do research. They know how to choose products that are going to do well, develop upsells, like all that kind of stuff. Because I love talking about this stuff, as you can see. I love teaching. I love spreading the word. So we were able to build a team that could, take a lot of work off my shoulders, so I could focus on the more strategic stuff, and then opening new, English-speaking markets and, things like that, where my time would be better spent than just writing another sales email or writing another ebook or things like that. That's not really how we would be able to scale to 7 figures and more if I just kept doing all this stuff myself.
As someone who has also spent quite a bit of time hiring copywriters and assembling copywriting teams for past clients to be able to, do the same thing, like grow to like 7 figures, like I know the difficulty of the journey. And what's even more impressive to me is that something that you have not even mentioned, and I don't know if anyone has caught on to this yet, but you learned all of these copywriting things in English, and from what I'm understanding, translated
it. Don't even mention it. Like, writing copy in Slovenian language for the first time was one of the most painful experiences of my life. It was so bad. I reached out to my Slovenian language teacher from high school. Oh, no. I went to coffee with her to help me with grammar.
Oh, crap. I didn't know that.
It was so, I did not know how to write copy in Slovenian. I still think copy in Slovenian language sounds horrible. Like it sounds so weird, so salesy. It's like everything that you say in English that sounds totally normal in Slovenia just sounds salesy and scammy. So we had to navigate around that. Was challenging at first, but then for the first few months it was challenging. Then it's like everything. You practice it, you get better, you kind of see what works. It just becomes more natural. It's kind of like the same thing. Like I'm training our Slovenian copywriters write copy in English, just right now. And they're like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, don't worry, I got you. We'll get there.
So this is cool because like you have some people who will be listening to this who are, trying to architect their own journey through the 6 and 7, figures and everything. But I also know there's also going to be other people who already have marketing agencies who are listening to this, and things I can hear them saying. It's like, okay, so he understood the strategic principles and then translated it into another language, trained these people to be able to write and produce results for it. But in addition to that, there's also understanding the nuances of cultural context and differences between a Western market, and Slovenia, because like you said, like that's what is coming out to me once you say, yeah, it's too salesy once you translate it, to Slovenian, it's like the cultural context is different, and so the fact that you were able to then even like figure that out, like that is an extremely advanced like skill, it's like, localization, but then also strategic as well. Like that's incredible. And I think that's something that has probably allowed you to be successful, because I know something else that you all have done is you're no longer just marketing in Slovenia. Like you've expanded to other countries to then, architect more of this growth journey towards like the 7 figures. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so Slovenia was great. It was, what I call a virgin market. And it's one of the things that I think there's still plenty of virgin markets out there. I know there are, markets like, Slovenia for lots of niches, Philippines, India, lots of these places, probably Japan. They have practically no competition. We had competition when we joined this market. Like there were people teaching parenting online, but they were spending $10 a day on Facebook ads. And then we come in and eventually we start spending $1,000 a day on Facebook ads. There was like the people were doing the basics, they were doing like 2 out of 10. We were trying to do like 8 out of 10, on just like everything, on funnels, on upsells, on copy, on product development, the speed of developing product, the execution, the shooting quality, everything. We just went like all out on it. And there was, no competition for us. Like we basically saturated the whole market, like essentially. Like we just, to give you perspective, what I mean by that. So there's 2 million people in Slovenia. Approximately 450,000 parents. Not all of those are going to be our target audience because a lot of them are going to be grandparents, right? So maybe 150,000. And then also, each person has a different parenting style. So like the guy that we work with, no matter, what we do, he's not going to be relatable to some of the, people in Slovenia. They're just not going to like. So maybe we have a target audience of, let's say, 100,000 people. Mm-hmm. Our email list very quickly went from, 2,000 people to 60,000 people. So we have the whole market essentially on our email list, the majority of it, right? It's like we are reaching everybody that we possibly could. We still were able to generate $1 million in revenue in Slovenia. Definitely not bad. In a niche where you're not supposed to make money, be able to make money. We did a 100K launch in Slovenia with a single product that cost $27, which was quite an achievement. Yeah. So yeah, we did pretty good with that. And that just really shows you when you like find a market that's amazing, like so many things are possible when there's this big need, big problem, nobody's solving, like the basic fundamentals of building a business. There's no competition. It's like you could have bad copy, you could have a bad offer, you would still help a lot of people and basically scale up the business really, really fast. So that happened in Slovenia, but then after a while, we actually moved really fast. We developed, I was doing the maths a couple of days ago, I think like 40 different products like online courses on every single parenting topic, ebooks, webinars, later on these challenges and things like that. We did a bunch of stuff. And then there at one point, there was not much more left to be said. We solved every problem that we could humanly solve, that we could think of. We tried to create the best possible products. And while there are new parents every year in Slovenia, when we are going to continue serving those, and then, new problems will arise for parents. It's like, their kids become teenagers and, go to school and things like that. I don't personally see a way in which we could 10x the size of this business in Slovenia unless we went into a completely different business model. Like, for example, we could start selling children's books or toys, but we strategically chose not to do physical products because none of us is really good at that. And it's not the business that we want to play in. We want to play to our strengths. So then we thought like, okay, it's Slovenia, it's going to keep making consistent revenue. We have an email list. We can market it for free. Basically, we can run ads and they're going to be profitable. We can consistently make a couple of $100,000 every year in Slovenia for years. So that's okay. We have that covered. But our goal is not to help, 25,000 customers that we helped in Slovenia. That's like how many people we actually helped over the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to help millions of people. And also our goal is not to build a 7-figure business, but a 9-figure business. So we knew it was just a matter of time, until we go bigger. And when we found this product that really like this, it was like a 28-day no yelling challenge for parents, because we saw that like parents really hate yelling and they just want to get kids to listen without yelling at them. That felt like a really big pain point and really big desire that we've seen over and over again. We created like that challenge. It generated a 100K launch. We thought like, oh, wow, this is 4 times better than any other online course, any other product we have ever launched. It was a complete outlier. So okay, that's interesting. And at that point, we started seriously thinking about going abroad. And then it took us from that moment 10 months to publish the first profitable funnel in the US, in the English-speaking market. It took a while because, again, we're focusing on many other things. We were hiring, we were firing, we were training, we were, testing a bunch of things out. Of course, first, when we created one challenge, we wanted to create 5 more challenges. So we did a challenge for better grades, for stress-free parenting, for getting kids to listen, and so on and so on. We did all of these different challenges. And then eventually it was like, okay, there's really nothing else we can say here. There might be a couple of new products we develop a year, like maybe like this more niche products. Like we've launched a product on raising kids with ADHD, which can be a great, big market in like the whole wide world. But in Slovenia, it's pretty small. Mm-hmm. So when we start like nitpicking these niche products, we're just like, okay, now it's really time for us to go target a broader audience. So then in November, we finally launched this funnel, and we launched like the 28-day no yelling parenting challenge. We launched it in the US market as well as in EU market. So we run ads in EU as well as US. And then things blew up. First month, immediately 100K revenue. Nice. And that was November. With like a single product during Black Friday, and then December, same story. Advertising is expensive. We're still bringing in like, almost 100K in revenue for that. January, things start exploding.
So that's incredible, because that's almost like, it's cool. A lot of people talk about like a big launch, and having like these big numbers like 1 month, but then it's not repeatable. But the fact that you're establishing a pattern, I like to say that patterns start at 3, and so for you to have 3 months of like, like if you average it out, like we plotted out on a graph, like see either like a line going across or it's starting to go up, that's incredible. But there's also another concept within there that I wanted to dive into, which was, you recently wrote about this, the time to launch. And like when you mentioned like how long it took to get things going, like a little bit earlier, that's something that came to mind. And I don't think it's something that enough people talk about. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, definitely. It's, I mean, we've seen this when I was starting my first business. Actually, for me, because I make decisions quickly and I have a pretty good way of figuring out what's important, what isn't, or maybe I'm just too lazy to spend, time on things like design and formatting, whatever. And just like, no, this is good. Let's just ship it out. That was a lot of my mindset when I was building my first businesses. I was actually putting out products relatively fast compared to some of the other people that I see, like, the people that tried to build online business but didn't succeed. A lot of them, they would develop an online course for a year, 2 years, never launch it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've seen it.
If I develop a course for a year right now and never launch it, we don't have a business.
Yep.
Like, there is no other option, and especially, when we, there's lots of also like misconceptions, like how often you can launch to an email list. I was thought like you can launch like maybe once every 3 months, and I started pushing it. And like before I started working in Slovenia, I taught my clients you should launch something every month, because if nothing else, you'll generate some revenue. You're not going to be in the red. If it's a 10K launch, great. If it's a 20K launch, amazing. If it's a 3K launch, still much better than no launch at all. Plus, you're going to get much better at launching and writing copy and building funnels if you're going to be doing 12 launches a year versus 1 launch a year. Plus, you're going to be able to help more people. Plus, more people will have the opportunity to buy from you. A lot of good things. In Slovenia, we're basically doing like 40 launches a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're relatively soft. They're not hard. Like when we launch a new product, we do a big launch. We do like a proper 1 to 2 week launch. But most of them, like there might be like a couple of sales emails, very non-salesy, very product focused. Like, hey, we have this problem, we have this deal for you, whatever. But what helped us get there is decreasing this time to launch, because a lot of people say like you shouldn't launch too often because it's going to lead to list burnout. And I would believe that, but I don't see the numbers confirming that, because we've been doing 40 launches, a year, and we still have 40% open rates for our emails on an email list of 60,000 people.
So a question that I know, because this is the good stuff right here. Like a question I can hear people asking is, but were you launching to the same list? Was it different segments? Like how did
same
you
list. Whole list.
Same list?
Okay. Whole list. No segmenting. No. Same list.
Wow.
Well, I don't launch a product to someone who already has it, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
The key
and maintaining
here,
40% open rate. Yeah, you said the key.
The key is I would burn this list out if I did 40 launches with a single product, 2 products, 3 products, 5 products. The problem is not launching. When I subscribe to a newsletter from my favorite clothing company, I don't give a shit if they email me 3 times a week with new cool stuff they have for me. But I don't like it if they email me the same stuff over and over again, right?
Okay.
I don't care if, how many times my favorite restaurant in the world has this special sushi evenings. It's great. Can I come more often? It's an opportunity for me to get value. So I think one of the key things, there's 2 key principles to how we were able to not burn that list out. The first key principle is know when to go soft, know when to go hard, right? Like definitely when we do like 4 launches a year versus when we did, 10, our launches are way, way, way softer. So no, emails every day, no triple reminder emails, no cart extensions, things like that, right? So we keep it softer and we kind of like modify it. If a launch does really good, then we'll send more emails. If it goes poorly, then we'll send less emails, right? So that's the first core principle. The second one is we keep rotating the stuff. As I said earlier, we have like 30 different products right now. So we're only going to be launching like the same product once every 30, 40 weeks.
Okay.
It's not really that often.
I see. Right? Okay.
Gotcha. We're constantly like giving them new stuff, solving new problems for them. And then also what we would do is we would have a mix of like relaunches and new products. Right. So there's always something new, something exciting, and so on and so on.
Okay.
So that's how we're able to avoid that. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's excellent. That's a fantastic distinction, so expand the product portfolio. So one that obviously shows that you had this product engine, like just dialed in, to be able to create that many. And then also the marketing engine to be able to create that much copy for each of those different products. And so this is a well-oiled machine to be able to do that kind of volume within the space of a year, and to be able to maintain those email open rates as well. That's really remarkable. In addition to that, and then with the localization to Slovenian language, like that's there's so many layers to that I wanted to just like call out there. There's also something else that you had developed and discovered on this journey to growing it into like a 7-figure agency, which is the growth hierarchy. What is that, and how does it work?
So that's the concept we touched on earlier, right? When I talked about virgin markets. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's just a concept. I didn't invent it. It's just how I call it. I've heard many people talk about it. I don't know who invented it, so I can't give them credit, unfortunately. But you have the growth hierarchy, which is like on the highest possible level is the market. If you have a great market, bad offer, bad copy, doesn't matter. Plenty of examples. When it rains here in Copenhagen, if you are on a scooter, if somebody offers you a raincoat, you will buy it.
I like that. Yeah. Yep.
If there's a raincoat, you buy. Doesn't matter if it's the shittiest raincoat in the world. Does not matter how expensive it is, almost. Does not matter how bad the copy is or the assessment. You just want the damn raincoat, right?
Yep.
Then that's an example. Another relatable example is, masks in COVID times. My how's it called? Cousin actually made a lot of money hand sewing masks. Basically paid off her mortgage just sewing masks. It was just great market at the time.
Wow.
People wanted masks, this nice masks that weren't horrible. And there was a shortage of masks. And then probably there's things like, stories like people selling toilet paper for $30 a roll in the US when everybody would just buy it out. Like that's the power of the market,
Supply
you want this, it's supply and demand. That's the first foremost principle. Copy doesn't matter, offer doesn't matter. Just solve the problem for me, right? Now,
so, go ahead.
Yes.
I was going to say, so it sounds like identify a pre-existing mass need that the market has, that your audience has, and then do a great job of filling that need. And if the problem solution fit is extremely strong, you don't need a whole lot of language in between that to be able to facilitate the transaction, basically. That makes sense.
I mean, that's the principle. I will say good copy is going to work better than bad copy. Good offer is going to work better than, bad offer. Like probably if you have really good copy versus really bad, it could mean like a 5 to 10x difference, in just overall. Because again, remember I said we had competitors in Slovenia, but nobody had 7-figure businesses. They're making like $1,000 a month, not, $100,000.
Yep.
And they had products, but they weren't marketing them. They weren't bringing them to market. They weren't doing any Facebook ads. So, even though they had an offer and everything, still, it still wasn't happening for them. Now, here's the tricky thing here is it's very rare that it does happen. It constantly happens, but it's very rare that new, really good markets arise. It's very rare, like, something like COVID happens and all of a sudden everybody needs masks, right? Like that's a very rare occurrence. It does happen. Things happen. Like, for example, AI copywriting is big right now. And I'm sure a lot of people are making, lots of money selling AI copywriting courses because some people really want to learn it, right? Like things like this do happen. And there were like messenger bots and things like that, where if you're like an early adopter and then become an early expert, you can basically be one of the first people in that market, right? Now, these are things, but you can't really rely on them. It's what's more likely, especially like over the last 10, 15 years, is that the markets get worse and worse. There's less and less, you would call them blue oceans and more red oceans.
Yep.
Because the barrier to entry has dropped so much. Like when I started my own business, I had to hire people to build me a website, to design me a website. There were no templates. I couldn't, get Elementor, build a website, or Squarespace, or whatever Wix, whatever people are using nowadays. I would have spent thousands of dollars on that. Now you can do it like with a couple of clicks. You have a website. It's crazy, right? The barrier to entry is so much lower because of that. There are so much like courses that teach you how to build a business and so on and so on, which is why a lot of the markets have become much more saturated.
Yep.
Than they used to be. So that's why they are like, far less virgin markets. Like if you look at 2007, when a lot of people built their businesses, they were doing crappy marketing, crappy content. They built huge businesses because they were in like virgin markets. Like they were the first people blogging. They were able to build huge followings. When Instagram was new, people built like millions of followers because they were one of the first people on Instagram, right? But it's getting worse and worse. I feel like there still are virgin markets. Probably much fewer of them are in the United States, because that's who everybody wants to target with advertising, which I don't know why, because it's like 10 times more expensive than everywhere else. Like, I don't know what's like, everybody has this idea, it's the holy grail. And like, the conversions are higher. And it's like, we've done some testing. AOV in US is a little bit higher than in Europe, but the ads are 10 times more expensive. So there are a lot of virgin markets outside of US. There might be bigger markets like Spanish speaking or German or Italian markets. Might be smaller markets like Poland, like Netherlands, like Portugal, like, Croatia and things like that. There's lots of markets where you can get insane numbers on things like Facebook ads, email open rates, conversions. Like you would be shocked to see how different the numbers are.
So I love this concept of the virgin markets. Like how would you recommend someone even go about finding one?
Just move to another country. No, I mean, like, it's like, no, like there's people doing this, right? Like I actually have a friend who's doing this. Like, they built a supplement business. They have a really, really, really big business. You would not say it's that big. They, started selling supplements in Slovenia, and then they went to Poland, they went to Austria, they went to basically all these numbers. They built like teams for each of the countries, hired copywriters and translators to translate everything. They would just copy and paste the funnels. It works. You can actually do that. It works. There's nuances, not so much cultural nuances, but more like nuances in payment methods. Like there's this really weird thing, like it's called cash on delivery. Like this is the craziest, stupidest thing. But it's if we didn't do this thing, I'm not sure if we'd have a business today. I mean, I'm not sure. So how do you buy an online course in Slovenia, right? So you go to the website, see the sales page, you go to the checkout page, you enter your details, you choose cash on delivery. What does that mean? That means, you click there, your account gets created, you enter your personal details, you enter your address, you don't enter your credit card, right? So your account gets generated. You don't have the access to the course yet. What happens is a postman brings you an envelope with a card, and inside the card is your access code for your online course, which we made online so anyone can buy it, but you have to pay the postman to get it. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Like there's because people don't trust credit cards, because not everybody has a credit card. Like, lots of our audience, like, 40s, 50s, they're just like, just the postman. It's just the culture. And like in our country, there's like 30 to 40% of the sales come through this. And we've tested removing this option to force people to use credit cards with PayPal. It doesn't work. Our conversions die. Like you cannot do it without this. And it's the exact same story. If you go to Italy, it's going to be the same thing. If you go to Croatia, if you don't have this, if you don't have like, Croatian bank account and like the GLS or like DHL delivering these things for you, it's not going to work. You have great copy, your business is going to fail.
That's wild.
It's crazy.
That's
and
crazy.
It's the same thing for like, in the Netherlands, there's this weird thing called Ideal, where basically there's like bank transfers within like the within Dutch banks. Really frustrating because I lived there and didn't have the damn thing. I couldn't buy anything because that was the only payment method that you could use. But if you don't sell through Ideal, your business is going to fail, because those 30%, 50%, 70% that you would make on those sales can be the difference between profitability and being in the red. So you can go localized like that. But there's intricacies you have to figure out. But then when you do, there's actually so many virgin markets. Selling programming to Polish people, selling, even fitness workouts in Slovenia, it's like a 7-figure business. To sell like home workouts, things like that. You can do a lot of things. Probably if you go to Croatia, like almost anything, it's a virgin market for. However, it does require, most people are not going to do this. Most people will not build a team. They will not take the risk. It's a big investment to enter a market like that, as well as like 10 to 20K investment just to go to market with the product because of all the translations and everything. But virgin markets, like they're definitely there. I would say lots of them are really localized. And then beyond that, there's definitely other virgin markets that are just, I guess, some of them are more niche, some of them are less niche. If I think about it strategically, how I do it is I would find niches where people who are good at the profession are not good at marketing and will not want to do marketing.
Okay.
So that's the explanation for parenting coaching, right? Why there's a lot of parenting books out there because many people have written parenting books. But if you Google, there's not a lot of parenting courses. There was not a single paid parenting challenge out there when we started marketing it. Since then, people have copied us, and there's multiple parenting challenges. However, it was crazy. It was insane to me. Like parenting is such a big thing, but then you think about why is this still emerging market? Because none of the parenting coaches, they especially the good ones, they don't want to do marketing. It sounds scammy, it sounds salesy. They just want to put something on the page and then just hope it sells itself. They don't want to spend 100K a month on Facebook ads or like $500,000 a month on Facebook ads. Like they are never going to do that. They're never going to want to write the copy and things like that. So the only times when those businesses are successful is when they work with an agency that does the work for them. However, in our case, there didn't seem to be that many businesses that would be doing all that well. We found a couple of competitors, but we felt like, okay, their competitors, they have like multiple 8-figure businesses. So that's good. It's proof of concept. It works. Yep. However, they have like one product. We have 40. What are we waiting for? It's like, so, and I would say that there's probably, a lot more niches like that out in the world that you can find, but it is not the easiest thing in the world. It's when you find it, it's great. That's when you should leave everything, double down on it, stop doing everything that you're doing and double down on it. When everything is just working, when conversions are through the roof, just stop everything else. Just focus your attention there.
So that is
very opportunity.
That's incredible. And it's a perfect segue to something that we absolutely need to talk about, which is paid challenge funnels. Tell us more about that, because I think you had mentioned they're responsible now for more than 50% of revenue.
Yeah, more than 50% of so we went from scratch to 1.4 million revenue in 2.5 years, I think. So in 200K, 212K, 569K, and then 711K last year. And that's actually euros. So in dollars, it's 20% more. But yeah, 50% of that were paid challenge funnels. Now, I want to go back for just 1 second to growth hierarchy. If you can find a virgin market, if you can sell, raincoats when it rains, by all means, just do that. Now, if you don't have that opportunity, what can you do, right? Because a lot of people are going to say yeah, Primoz, that sounds great. I'm so happy for you, but I don't have that opportunity. How can I still grow and scale my own business, right? There is a way. There are many ways. So the hierarchy is you start with the market, and then the second thing that's most important is the offer. If you have a crowded, saturated market, you can still make it. You can still win with a great offer. Okay. Now, I'm not just saying a better online course than everyone else, even though that works. Even better is if you can come up with a brand new format that's extremely innovative that's like not really many people are using.
Mm-hmm.
If you find something new, like the first person who started selling like online courses, they probably made an insane amount of money, right? First person who started like selling, like I have a friend of mine in Slovenia. He started selling checklists for e-commerce. He made multiple six figures doing that. It's just like, here's a checklist, use this to optimize your e-com website. You're gonna make more money, pay me a little bit. That's it. It was like, a brand new offer in a market. And now you can see, like, again, many people are copying him. There's many offers like that, out there, but he was like the first one. So instead of creating the same offers that everybody else is creating, create something new. And that one thing, it's crazy to me because we've found this thing about challenge funnels, paid challenge funnels. It was, I think, in January 2021. It was like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we, or it was 2022. I don't know. It was probably last year. So it was like a year ago, right? So we did that and we started selling this paid challenge funnel. So what it is, when you hear challenge funnel, there is a term that exists for like challenge funnels, which is you have a 7-day challenge to collect email addresses and then you grow your email. That's typically what people think of. There are some great examples like the green smoothie challenge. Like there are lots of great challenges. People got a lot of email addresses for that, but that's not the thing I'm talking about. There's lots of things like that don't really work organically anymore as well as they used to. Also on paid ads, as far as I know, it's not nearly as lucrative as it was. We started doing a paid challenge.
Just one sec. We have such a long call that my AirPods are dying. I keep switching them.
You're good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
We'll make it quick. Okay, so you have this paid challenge funnels. What's the concept? You create a challenge. Mm-hmm. It can be a 28-day challenge. It can be a 21-day challenge. It can be a 7-day challenge. There's different intricacies, but the idea is for X number of days, let's say 28 days, you send someone an email every single day with a different tip that leads them to a certain outcome. Let's say I want to, teach you how to play guitar. I give you like 28 days, like for every day, do this different thing, and you're going to learn how to play guitar, like be competent in it in like 28 days, right? So you get like daily emails. And this, you would think that people are doing this, but they're not. If you Google 28-day guitar challenge, you're most likely not going to find a paid product that you can buy. It's crazy.
Yep.
It's going to be hard to find a programming challenge. You cannot even find like a copywriting challenge. Like there's 2 out there right now. And one of them is like a free thing from like, I think Gary Halbert, like from years ago, and one is mine because I built it. But you cannot find it. Animation challenge, like so many things. You cannot find paid products. It's like a brand new thing. Like there's things like the keto challenge, like the self-growth challenge, the procrastination challenge is a huge business. And like some of these things exploded, but there might be like a yoga challenge, but in most niches, there is no challenge. Now, why I love it. So first of all, nobody's offering this. So it's an opportunity that's right up there for grabs. Anything that you do, build a challenge and sell it, and you can make a lot of money. Second reason why I love it is we've tested this and the follow-through rates are much, much, much higher than with online courses. Mm-hmm. Online courses, I love them. I love going through them. The best investments I've ever made, but we know that industry standard follow-through rates are like 1%. Mm-hmm. Most people buy courses, never finish them. One of the advantages of like a challenge over an online course that our customers have told us about over and over again, that they love it, is they love the daily reminders. Especially when they're like, busy moms or like whoever, like they love just getting their email. It's like, oh, just do this one thing today. It's like, wow, okay, I can do this. And even if they fall behind, they still get a new email. They still get a new idea. They cannot not do it because it's right there with them, right? So that's the second reason why I love it. Third reason why I love it is we actually, by doing a lot of testing, we found a way to create really effective upsells for challenges that just work on every single funnel that we do. Mm-hmm. So challenges are usually fairly low ticket products. Like our most expensive challenge is probably like $28 that we were able to send profitably through Facebook ads. Now it's hard to build like a huge business on $28, product. That's why a big part of this, having an upsell funnel in the back end that increases your average order value or AOV. So we do that in a number of ways. One for like one-click upsells that happen after you already click the buy button, but also through things on the checkout page. What I mean by that is, with our challenges, we offer options to buy a challenge only or an audiobook together with the challenge. So that's an option that a lot of people choose because they just want to listen to it in the car. We offer challenge extensions. So if you buy a challenge, you can add an additional 28 days or however many days. And we offer a checklist that's based on the challenge so that you can, have all the stuff in one place on basically a couple of pages and you can start using it, implementing it right away. This structure, of the bump orders and like the audiobook, it increases our AOV by 30 to 50% on every single funnel that we do. Very templated. So that means that every person on average is not spending $27 with us. They're spending like $40 with us, or $45 or even $50 before the upsells even happen, which then increase the average order value further, right? And then that improves the economics, which means you can make the ads profitable, or if you're launching to an email list, you can actually make 2 to 3 times more revenue with these challenges. And all of a sudden you're selling like a $75 product just on average. It just seems like a $27 product. So I love it because it's, the reason why these bump orders, or I call them product extensions, the reason why these product extensions work is because they follow like 2 of the best types of upsells. And one of them is more of the same. Instead of getting 1 bottle of supplements, get 3. Instead of getting 1 yoga class, get 10 yoga classes, pay, I don't know, like instead of $10 per class, you get it for $8 per class. Like this stuff just works. It's just more of the same. It just works. People want more of the same, so they can get a better outcome. And the second thing is they want faster results. A checklist helps them get faster results.
That's incredible.
And it's just every single funnel that we launch, it just works. We don't have to invent new copy. We don't have to wonder what these things are going to be. We don't have to test. It just works. Like the numbers on this kind of stuff is crazy. Those are some of the reasons why I'm like really thrilled about, this new model that we discovered. It's just like one of the easiest things to actually, build out nowadays.
So that is incredible. I can't believe it's already been 2 hours.
We knew we were getting there. I told you.
And, we're just about coming to time. And like, there's just like there's one more question that I want to ask you for us to be able to like close out on, which is why you said no. Because like all this success is happening, right? But you recently made an interesting decision, which is saying no to $1,000 per hour. What's going on there?
Yeah, so this is also one of those uncomfortable conversations, because every time I tell somebody that I earn $1,000 per hour, they think like, first of all, like you're an asshole. Your audience is not going to think that, but they're like, just so incomprehensible for some people, to earn those amounts of money, because especially when the average salary is like, 10 euros per hour in Slovenia. Can you still hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and also because I sound like a complete asshole for saying no to $1,000 per hour, but hear me out. I often talk about how I take one step backward to be able to take 2 steps forward, right? And, for the past few years, I've been running this digital marketing agency, but I've always been working with my own coaching clients as well, which I still do to this date. I still, am working with a handful of clients. Because I love working with them, because they're good clients, and well, they do pay the bills, so even if like the company might not be doing well, or we're investing like 100% of our profits into growth, right? So it's definitely good to have diversified streams of income. But I also, as people saw the company that I was building, Slovenia is small, so people talk. So many people asked me to help them with marketing for their companies. I was actually became like an interim CMO for one of the companies for more than 6 months, which was doing well. You know, it was great profit. But at one point, back in October last year, I was running on empty fumes. I loved doing everything that I was doing, but there were too few hours in the day. That meant for 3 months, I think the only weekend that I didn't work was when it was my birthday trip. That was the only weekend I didn't work. And I would, wake up at 6 a.m. and then come home like at 8 p.m. in the evening. And it was not good for my relationships, mental health. I'm all about working hard and hustling, but it just like I wasn't happy, content, satisfied like I thought I would be. Sure, I was making a lot of money, but it was not going in the direction I wanted to. So that's one of the reasons why I started thinking like I need to change something. And the second reason is like my co-founder is really good at this. It's like the concept of opportunity cost that he introduced me to.
Mm-hmm.
And you only have a limited amount of assets, like of your time and energy every day. And you can choose where you spend it. And it's basically a simple, idea of focus. The more you focus on one thing, the better you're going to get at it, right? The more you're going to get out of it. And even though I might be getting paid, as much as like $1,000 per hour for a single hour of coaching, and it would be absolutely stupid to, say no to that and let go of some of my long-term clients and stop taking on any clients and leaving the position as a CMO and doing things like that. And even though it was really, really hard because I love working with my clients so much, I knew at one point, if I wanted to reach, the goal to build a 9-figure company and help millions of parents all over the world and all of the other people all over the world, I would have to give it my 190%. Like I would have to be there. I would have to think about it. I would have to focus on it. I would have to do everything in my power to get there. Because if I didn't do that, then somebody else would take that opportunity, which is fine by me. They're going to help the people. That's great. But it just felt like, I needed to say no to that revenue for a certain amount of time. And if you do the math, it's actually not that difficult to make that decision, because if you imagine if our company keeps growing the way that it has been growing, very, very quickly, every single hour that I put into my company is going to be worth much more than $1,000. Like when you start talking about an 8-figure company, you start understanding when you do the maths why there's a lot of 8-figure business owners that will not go to a conference where somebody would pay them like $25,000 just to do a 2-hour speech. Like you start to get it. When you get on that level, you kind of start to get that. So it's kind of like a similar situation to that. It's like, yes, I could do that, and I will keep my best clients, and that, I love working with. I will continue to do that. But I will mercilessly say no to 99% of like new opportunities, so I can have the time, so I can have the space to really do this one thing really, really right. And then also have a relationship with my girlfriend and be able to do yoga and things like that, because those things also, give me ideas, give me the space to, really make magic happen in a lot of things. So that was like one of the things I changed. Yeah.
I love that. And I couldn't think of like a better place to end this incredible conversation on. Like there's so much more that I want to talk to you about. I feel like we're scratching
8 more hours. 8 more hours.
At least. Like this has been incredible. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing the fullness of your story. I learned more about you. I've known you for 10 years and I'm still learning parts of your story, your past, present, future that like I had no idea. This was incredible. I know there are going to be so many people that we both know that are going to love this interview, and the people who we have yet to meet, who will get so much out of this. So again, I just want to say thank you for coming. This has been incredible. And thank you for being you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is probably the best interview I've ever done. Yeah, so good job.
Thank you.
Good job. This was really cool.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks for checking out the show. If you liked it, go ahead and hit the like button and also subscribe so you don't miss another one. It also tells us which ones that you like the most so that we can then do more interviews like that. If you want to go from idea to implementation though, especially if you're wanting to productize your expertise so that you can scale your impact on your clients and of course grow your business, then join our email list. There we're going to talk about how modern consultants can productize their expertise so that they can have a greater impact on the world around them and live life on their terms. If that's up your alley, I hope to see you on the other side. Talk soon.